This is Dali, an oasis of tranquility, 1,900 meters above sea level in the southwest of China, on the crossroads of many bygone civilizations. Join mysterious China as we tour this beautiful and romantic autonomous prefecture in Yunnan province, where 5,000 years of Chinese culture blend with a modern lifestyle in a unique and fascinating experience. Land of fantasy, mystique, and long history, it is here in Dali where the legendary silk and tea roads met. Mullahs, monks, and merchants traveled these fabled routes in search of fame and fortune. More notably, Genghis Khan's Mongol warriors set foot on these roads and changed the world many centuries ago. In their time, Genghis Khan and his Mongol warriors conquered nearly half the known world. Marco Polo, the famous Venetian explorer, raved about the beauty of Dali in his best-selling book, Il Milioni, which for over 700 years never went out of print. The acclaimed travel writer and geographer of the Ming Dynasty, Chu Xiake, and many poets throughout the centuries have praised Dali as the magic land beyond the clouds, an idyllic hideaway where life approaches perfection. Dali is located on a fertile plateau in the Kangshan Mountains. From these peaks, streams flow, forming waterfalls until finally joining the crystal clear waters of Erhai Lake. The Longshuaguan Gate Towers were erected during the Tang Dynasty, when outer fortifications of Dali were extending from the Kangshan mountain slopes to the Erhai Lake. Now, as a highway is extended, parts of the ancient walls and the remains of a military garrison have been excavated. When the Mongols attacked Dali and failed to break through the outer fortifications, they captured the unsuspecting defenders of Dali by sneaking through a seemingly impassable deep gorge across the Kangshan Mountains. Coming out the other side after the intense trek, they successfully claimed Dali. Nestled in a valley near the top of the Kangshans is the largest chessboard in the world. It is about the size of a tennis court, and each chess piece is the size of a coffee table. Although there are easier ways to the top, the people who have populated these areas for centuries are quite capable on their own. The ancient mountain trails are still used and cared for. In the spring, the Kangshan mountain range offers a rare and beautiful treat for grazing goats, multicolored, brightly blooming azaleas. Azaleas are flowering shrubs that only bloom for a few magical weeks each year. In the Chinese culture, the azalea is known as the thinking of home bush. It has been glorified by the rich poetry of Tu Fu and contemporary stories such as A Sea of Blood-Red Azaleas, in which the azalea represents a longing to return home. Honeybees, a multi-billion-dollar species. They are pollination experts with at least 14 million years of experience behind them. 1/3 of all food grown in the United States requires pollination, a statistic shared by most agricultural nations. Beehives can be home to tens of thousands of bees, the vast majority of whom are worker bees, equipped to collect nectar and pollen. Worker bees have a lifespan of about 4 weeks, while the breeder of the colony, the queen bee, can live from 2 to 7 years and lay up to 2,000 eggs per day. In 2006, the first clear signs of colony collapse disorder were seen in hives in Europe and America. Roughly 1/3 of the bee colonies perished. Certain pesticides, a virus, and fungus are linked to the cause of CCD. For humans, the bee's protection is not just a priority, but a necessity. Raw honey, eaten with fresh cracked walnuts, is not only a local staple, but also a gourmand's delight. The Bai and Yi minorities, who have lived here for thousands of years, predominantly settled Dali. When the winter barley is harvested in spring, it is thrashed in a most peculiar way. The Bai are farmers living in the fertile valleys. Ecologically responsible agriculture and the mild climate of Dali allow for double cropping, which means rotating summer rice with winter crops such as barley, soybeans, and canola. Local markets are often an open forum for deal making. Sometimes the animal is more anxious than the human to get things moving. Rice seedlings are grown in seed beds before being transplanted into the rice paddy fields in late spring. The rice is harvested in October. The winter crops are planted shortly thereafter and harvested in the spring of the next year. Numbering 8 million, the Yi are the 7th largest of the 55 ethnic minority groups in China. They live primarily in remote mountainous areas, carving out a scant existence, farming on the sides of steep mountain slopes far away from urban areas. They are largely self-sufficient, making rather than buying. Most Yi are farmers, but some are also herders or nomadic hunters. A few miles separate Old Dali and New Dali cities. Old Dali was constructed in the late 1300s during the Ming Dynasty, which lasted from 1368 till 1644. The streets of Old Dali are designed like a chessboard, 5 streets from north to south and 8 from east to west. The decision to keep Old Dali and New Dali apart from each other adheres to the wisdom of the critically acclaimed Spanish philosopher José Ortega y Gasset, who said, "Progress does not mean to destroy the past, but to preserve its essence, which had the power to create the present." Old Dali's idyllic and relaxing nature attracts many vacationing foreigners who tend to congregate on the aptly named Foreigners' Street for Dali-infused Western food, entertainment, and shopping. Time-honored and kid-approved street treat, sugar on a stick. The old city is still walled in by almost 4 kilometers of stone. 4 towering city gates face north, south, west, and east, and are the remains of the ancient fortifications that guarded against invaders. Dali's nightlife is colorful. Within the picturesque setting of Old Dali High School, many students are preparing themselves for college, most of whom will attend Dali University a few miles away. Dali University has a unique butterfly design fitting the local law. The university is a learning center for 16,000 students who are preparing to meet the challenges of the 21st century and the growing economic giant that is China. The new city of Dali, also known as Siaguan, offers state-of-the-art infrastructure with first-class hotels, a sports arena, an international convention center, and other modern conveniences. At a time when global warming and energy preservation are major concerns, policies of forward-looking, environmentally friendly urban planning result in less waste and pollution. Solar panels adorning the roofs of virtually all homes and office buildings, as well as endlessly turning windmills on the mountain ridges overlooking the city, provide much-needed alternative energy to the region. These and other renewable resources are being integrated into the rapid development of not only Dali, but all of China. Xieguan is also home to a very well-appointed museum that preserves local culture. Displayed are the detailed replica sculptures of Buddha and other deities, as well as the Nanzhao king with his retinue and prominent foreigners at his court. From the 8th to the 9th century, the Nanzhao Bai kingdom flourished, followed by the kingdom of Dali, which began in 937 and lasted until 1253, when Kublai Khan's Mongol warriors conquered it, and Dali was integrated into the Yuan dynasty. Last but not least, there is a replica of a rare stone carving of the Ayong Bai. It symbolizes the female reproductive organ. It is the symbol for mother. The 3 pagodas are the symbol of Dali and marvels of Chinese architecture. For 11 centuries, they have survived natural and man-made disasters. The main pagoda, standing 70 meters tall, was completed in 840 AD, and according to legend was meant to ward off dragons that inhabited the land. The 2 smaller pagodas were built over 100 years later. There is an ongoing unsolved mystery surrounding these 2 kingdoms. Neither the remains of their 41 kings nor those of about 10,000 other nobles were ever found. It is theorized that under the pagodas, a huge necropolis exists, or that a secret tunnel that reaches deep into a nearby jade mountain contains the remains of the deceased. Like the pagodas, the Chongsheng Temple is a landmark of Dali and dates back to the Tang Dynasty. It was an early center of Buddhism and has been destroyed several times during the past centuries by war and natural disasters. Beautifully restored in 2005, it is once again a spiritual center displaying many gilded copper statues of saints and deities. The Zhanji Bell of Nanzhao was recast and struck for the first time when Hong Kong was returned to Chinese sovereignty in 1997. The giant wood-carving scroll depicting stories of Buddha on the walls of the Hall of the Great Hero is the largest one of its kind. Buddhism originated in India, where Siddhartha Gautama found enlightenment under a bo tree. The 4 noble truths preached by Gautama Buddha are: 1. Sorrow is the universal experience of mankind. Everyone is subjected to the traumas of birth, sickness, decrepitude, and death. 2. The cause of sorrow is desire. 3. The removal of sorrow can only come from the removal of desire. And 4, desire can be systematically abandoned and nirvana achieved if one follows the noble eightfold path. Buddhism constitutes one of the 3 main philosophical forces of Chinese spirituality the other two being Taoism, founded by Lao Tzu, and Confucianism. Although each of the three has different founders and separate origins, they share the same purpose: improve personal character and be altruistic. Around 650 AD, during the Tang Dynasty, Arab and Persian traders arrived in China on the Silk and Tea roads. They brought with them Islam. Today, there are over 22 million Muslims in China. One of the most famous Chinese Muslims was Admiral Sheng He, who lived during the 14th century. He commanded the largest fleet to sail the oceans at the time with 28,000 men and traveled as far as Africa and the Middle East, gaining political influence on behalf of the Ming Dynasty. Christianity gained a foothold in China during the 16th century, when the Ming Emperor allowed Jesuit priests to build churches and spread the gospel. During that time, Matteo Ricci spent many years in China and was one of the founding members of the Jesuit China Mission, which played a significant role in the transmission of knowledge, science, and culture between China and the West. The pristine water of the Butterfly Spring is shaded by two gnarled old silk trees, locally known as butterfly trees, that emit an intoxicating fragrance attracting butterflies. Legend has it that many years ago, a lovely Bai girl was washing laundry in the spring when a deer came out of the woods, wounded by an arrow. The deer's hunter, a handsome young man, followed. The hunter immediately fell in love with her. Over time, they became lovers. The rescued deer became a friend and followed them wherever they went. When the lord of the region heard about the beauty of the girl, he ordered his guards to abduct the girl and kill her father. Her young lover came to her rescue, and they both escaped to the spring. When the guards of the lord closed in on them, both jumped into the water, followed by the faithful deer. All three of them drowned. Thunder and lightning struck and killed the guards and set fire to the estate of the nobleman, who burned to death. When the tormenting weather calmed, 3 butterflies rose from the spring into the blue sky of Dali. In the Chinese culture, 2 butterflies together are a symbol of love. A famous folk story by the name Butterfly Lovers is the Chinese equivalent of Romeo and Juliet. Fittingly, a unique butterfly sanctuary has been established near the spring, where thousands of butterflies are raised and studied. Butterflies are particular about where they lay their eggs, usually the underside of a plant that their species prefers to feed off of. The larva or caterpillar grows to about 27,000 times its size at birth by consuming leaves. Once matured, it stops feeding and begins looking for a suitable site for pupation, often the underside of a leaf. Soon, the pupa transforms into a butterfly. Butterflies are important agents of pollination, just as bees are. Also, like bees, butterflies taste with their feet before eating. It is a common belief that butterflies have a very short lifespan. However, butterflies in their adult stage can live from a week to nearly a year, depending on the species. Interestingly, butterfly wings are covered in scales which give them color. These high-resolution images show the iridescent scales as they appear under a microscope. Throughout history, butterflies have symbolized rebirth and delicate beauty. Every day, the Dali Travel Group's cruise ships leave the new city of Dali for an excursion to Honeymoon Island. "10 years ago, Honeymoon Island was a barren island with a few lonely trees. Today, it is a lush paradise surrounded by the crystal-clear waters of Air High Lake. A giant goddess of mercy, the patron saint of Dali, overlooks the romantic island. Once upon a time in the kingdom of Dali, a cruel king demanded his daughter to wed a wealthy man. She begged not to be forced to marry and consequently braved the wrath of her father, who attempted to kill her. Even still, she forgave him and retreated to a mountain. The legend ends with the king contracting a terrible illness, and only the medicine derived from the arm and eye of one without anger could heal him. His daughter offered herself to save him. In recognition of her sacrifice, the gods blessed her with 1,000 arms, and she became the goddess of mercy. Island chefs traditionally prepare fresh meals every day. When the cruise ships arrive, it is best to be camera ready. Some more so than others. The traditional Bai wedding is a special occasion for this fishing village. In order to show respect for her family, a bride must weep bitterly on her wedding day. If the bride is unable to shed tears, her maids will use a pepper lotion to make her cry. The groom carries the bride on his back to their new home. Dancing, music, and large quantities of food are all part of this special day. After the formalities are complete, the newlyweds race to the bedroom. The first one to grab a pillow rules the house. The great cormorant. Related to the pelican, there are some 40 species of cormorants. The great cormorants are a widespread species that inhabit seas, lakes, and rivers. They are colonial nesters using trees, rocky islets, and cliffs, laying eggs once a year. Lovingly, the males attend to their counterparts. The eggs take about 30 days to hatch. Newborn cormorants are extremely weak and vulnerable. They need a lot of fish, which their parents provide from the abundant supply in the lake. The pre-digested fish is stuffed into the gullets of the young. Humans have exploited the cormorant's fishing skills for over 1,300 years. The cormorant flutters its gulls to cool off during hot days. Lunchtime. Here in Dali, the fishermen raise the birds in tandem with the mother to create a bond. Assisted by the ability to move its eyes, a rarity amongst birds, once of age, the cormorant is a fishing machine. The practice of cormorant fishing is defined by limiting the bird's ability to swallow large fish by tying a reed near the base of the throat. Smaller fish go down smoothly, but larger ones force the bird back to its master, who removes it. The birds are rewarded for their success, and again they dive back into the water for another catch. Myth has it that the cormorant is a symbol of deception and greed. In Paradise Lost, an epic poem written in 1667 by the Englishman John Milton, Satan disguises himself as a cormorant to enter the Garden of Eden before tempting Eve. In Ireland, seeing a cormorant perched atop a church steeple is a warning of bad luck to come, while Norwegian myth has it that 3 cormorants flying together are messengers of death. In England, the mythical liver bird, the beloved symbol of the city of Liverpool, is thought to be a cross between a cormorant and an eagle. Orchids can be surprisingly valuable. They are big business in Dali. Well-trained, fierce, and very valuable dogs guard the treasures of the orchid plantations. Some of these canines have a price tag upwards of $70,000. At this plantation, thousands of orchids grow at any given time, ranging in price from $1 to $4,000. Orchids are robust yet delicate plants, susceptible to pestilence. They live in temperature and humidity-controlled climates and are given organic medicines to help defend against disease. Price is determined by rarity of species and difficulty to cultivate. There are hundreds of different species of orchids, and new varieties continue to be cultivated by orchid lovers all over the world. There is a large demand for those who understand this delicate art. At this private mansion in Dali, one such person has made a good living off of his talent to find and cultivate rare breeds of orchid. In a special room at the top of his home, he cultivates and identifies some of the most rare and valuable orchids in the world. For example, the orchid on the left sells for $60, while the orchid on the right sells for $80,000. And that is per stem, by the way, not the whole pot. The extensive walnut plantations around Yangbin provide food for many and art for a few. The artifacts made from walnut shells are a unique form of handicraft derived by a local man who sells his work around the world. Walnut shells are cut, then their meat removed for sorting. Ultimately, nothing is wasted. All of this can be turned to oil. The shells are then arranged in a variety of shapes. Here, a vase. Through a secret process, the walnuts are melded together and the mold removed to leave the final product, a work of art. The Bai people have a long tradition of handicraft. The village of Jinghe is a center for basket weaving. These women are masters of the traditional process and produce some of the highest quality baskets in the region. tie-dyeing. Although considered outdated fashion in the United States, these women are capable of producing some of the most sought-after tie-dye products in the world. The stenciled fabric is folded, twisted, sewn, and bound together with string. Dye is then applied to only parts of the material, the tight string limiting the spread of color. The material is rinsed and the dye is set. Now completed, they will be sewed locally and shipped around the world. Dali also has a long marble mining history. The marble is so famous that in China, it is literally called Dali stone. Dali marble is richly patterned and colored. Its texture is refined and comes in a great variety with a strong anti-corrosive quality. It is used not only for construction but also for decoration. Some patterns look almost like exquisite paintings. Silver, the most conductive metal on Earth, is often used to create works of art. It heats rapidly, melting at 962 degrees Celsius. It is a soft metal, but slightly hotter than gold. However, as an alloy, usually combined with copper, it is stronger and more functional as a utensil. The artists in Xinhua have made a name for themselves by producing beautiful works of art out of silver. Some of their work is religious, such as this Tibetan prayer bar, which is almost pure silver. On the way to Jinchuan are some beautiful hot springs. Just outside Jinchuan, the hot kilns of clay factories burn relentlessly. Clay mixed by the hooves of oxen has many uses. At this factory, most of the products are made for construction. roof tiles are a specialty. The end tile having a decorative finish. Jinchuan, also called Town of the Three Rivers, was built during the Ming Dynasty in 1390. Its carefully preserved architecture bears witness to a history of over 600 years. Most of the Bai women are very talented embroiderers and gifted weavers. This elderly woman has been embroidering for most of her life and has passed the tradition on to her daughters. Wood carving is a much revered art form in China. Elaborate carvings decorate temples, palaces, and private homes. The process is similar to a painter's. A general look is blocked out, and then details are added as the artist sees fit. Then, of course, it is soaked in lacquer. The 8 grottos of the Shihong Temple in the Shibao Mountain near Jinchuan, also called Stone Treasure, are a famous tourist attraction. Still today, Bai girls come here to worship and burn incense at the Ayong Bai, praying for a beautiful and healthy child. In all, there are 16 grottos and 139 delicately carved rock statues in this area. Monkeys roam the tranquil forests of the hanging temple of Baoqiong. The temple was constructed during the Yuan dynasty and is a sanctuary of the Azali Buddhist sect, whose members are allowed to marry. Its surroundings offer a unique view of strange rock formations and great natural beauty. Dominated by a huge lion king roaring from high in the pristine stone lion forest near Jinchuan, are 1,000 stone carvings from the Song and Qing dynasties. Legend has it that when illegal loggers attempted to cut down this large cypress tree, which is about 70 meters high now, lightning struck from the heavens and badly injured one of them. Thereafter, no one dared to touch the tree, and it continues to rise, full of life, into the sky. The Lion King is a new addition to the forest. It is an impressive sight from near and far, standing tall above its 1,000 brothers. Fittingly, stone carving has a long history in the area. ink, the inkstone, brush, and the special paper used in calligraphy are referred to as the four treasures of China. Kai Lun, a Chinese eunuch, invented papermaking in 105 AD. The special paper can be made from bamboo or the bark of the winged celtis tree that only grows in mountainous regions of China. The traditional skill of papermaking takes several steps, including steeping, washing, pulping, fermenting, bleaching, and cutting. The final product is dried on walls. This simple process changed the world only centuries ago. The famous traveler Xu Xiake called Mount Jizu, also known as Chicken Foot Mountain, a summit which offers all the views under the sun. The trek up the mountain is breathtaking and fun, at least for those who enjoy equestrian activities. During the Tang Dynasty, many Buddhist temples were built here. More temples were added during the Yuan and Ming dynasties, and by the end of the Qing Dynasty in 1911, the mountain had 108 temples. The afternoon light streams over the Golden Temple and the towering pagoda next to it. The pagoda forest near Chicken Foot Mountain is home to the ashes of over 1,000 monks. The oldest pagoda dates back over 1,200 years. Discovered in catacombs beneath the graveyard, the remains of high monks from centuries ago line the walls. To this day, respected monks still have their bodies cremated and ashes interred here. As tradition dictates, disciples lay the monk's body in this modern-day crematorium and bury his ashes in the graveyard. far from Weishan, the old Bolo war dance is practiced. The ancient city of Weishan dates back to 730 AD. It is the birthplace of the Nanshao Kingdom. These colorful basket seats are a handmade specialty of Weishan, and surprisingly comfortable. Like Dali, its streets also have a chessboard design. Most of the architecture in Weishan dates back to the Ming and Qing dynasties. Only the West Gate and a tower in the city center have survived. This artisan makes old-style scales, the same as have been made for thousands of years. Wandering through the old streets of Weishan, one experiences the city almost as it has been for centuries. Each shop has its purpose, and the community is social, even with the birds. The densely forested Weibao Mountain towers over Weishan City. On top is a secluded, well-restored Taoist sanctuary. Planted 400 years ago during the Ming Dynasty, this camellia tree has grown to 19 meters and is considered the largest in the world. It blooms in January, its blossoms emanating a strong, intoxicating fragrance. Every year, during the second month of the lunar calendar, the faithful flock here from all over. The Yi language is distinct, displayed in pictographs. It is closely related to Burmese, with more than 6 dialects. Lao Tzu, meaning old master, is the mythical figure who supposedly lived in the 6th century BC and is the father of Taoism. One can hear the wise words of Lao Tzu from his Tao Te Ching, the Book of the Way and its power, as they echo through the lush, enchanted forest. Nature has its way, and everything has a place where it belongs. Those who tamper with nature will harm it and lose it. A message that in today's world is more relevant than ever. Another poignant message states, oppose all conquest by force of arms. Fulfill your purpose, but without violence. Show me a man of violence who came to a good end, and I will take him for my teacher. However, violence did touch Yunnan and the people of Dali. On July 7, 1937, Imperial Japan attacked and invaded China, taking hundreds of thousands of Chinese lives within the first 6 months. This footage illustrates Yunnan's critical involvement in helping China and the United States fight off the Japanese.
Why, if the Chinese, who in all their 4,000 years of history had never waged an aggressive war, been forced to fight and die by the millions? Because China is land, 4 million square miles of it. And because China is people, 450 million of them. And because Japan had a plan to use them both. Phase 1, the conquest of Manchuria for raw materials. Phase 2, the absorption of China for manpower. Phase 3, a triumphant sweep to the south to seize the riches of the Indies. Phase 4, the eastward move to crush the United States. One fact was obvious. China was to be the giant back on which Japan would ride to world conquest, just as Russia was to be enslaved for German use.
Britain was engaged in a two-fronted war against Germany and Japan. Germany was bombing Britain with ferocious attacks during the Blitz, and Japan was threatening its colonial interests in India. Britain implored the United States for help in China, which was eventually given.
China is now our fighting ally, or more accurately, we are China's. As the Japanese moved inland to secure control of key rail lines and important communications, and China's supply lines from the outside world were cut off, supplies she was getting from her Western friends. However, in Burma was a railroad that ran from the port of Rangoon to Lashio. Separating it from the truck road at Kunming were hundreds of miles of high mountains and deep river gorges. If this stretch of tortuous mountain trails could be replaced by a modern highway, where now only pack trains could pick their plodding way, China would have a practical supply route to Burma and the sea. Several internationally known firms of engineers were called in to do the job. They said the work might be completed in 6 or 7 years, if China could supply them with the most modern machinery. But China didn't have the modern machinery, nor did she have the 6 or 7 years. So she began building the road with her bare hands, over mountains, through jungle and swamp, from India to China, to connect with the old Burma road. By thousands, by tens of thousands, by hundreds of thousands, they toiled at the back-breaking task of carving this desperately needed supply line out of the reluctant mountains. And out of their toil and their sweat, they created the Burma Road. Not in 6 or 7 years, but in less than 12 months. A monument to the new spirit, to the new China. As soon as it was completed, the road went into immediate service.
However, by 1942, Japan had made a sweeping move into China, while fighting off the United States in the Pacific Theater. But out of it all, China took the greatest loss. It lost the Burma Road.
The same people that built the Burma Road are building airfields out of stones, mud, and patient, tireless hands. Over this Burma Skyway, over this hump of mountains 16,000 feet high, more tonnage is being flown into China than was ever trucked in over the Burma Road. And in the skies over China, Japan faces new opposition. Men who pledged themselves to fight against tyranny and oppression no matter where. Americans like the legendary Colonel Chennault and his Flying Tigers, who, with their few American planes, were knocking down enemy planes at the fantastic ratio of 20 nips to 1 of their own.
Yunnan of the Dali prefecture are the remnants of now derelict but once proud fighter planes that are the tangible memories of the famous Burma Road and the legendary volunteers of the Flying Tigers. The former Yunnan Burma Road headquarters now serves as a museum to the World War II history of the area. The Flying Tigers were largely the creation of General Claire Lee Chennault, consisting of only 3 squadrons with 20 aircraft each, all assembled on location. The clandestine group, appointed by President Franklin D. Roosevelt himself with a secret executive order, was a well-financed private military contractor, and for that reason the highly paid volunteers have sometimes been called mercenaries. The Flying Tigers' shock-faced fighters were officially credited with destroying nearly 300 Japanese aircraft. They will now be immortalized by director John Woo in his major Hollywood motion picture about the epic 1940s aerial battles of the Flying Tigers, which emphasized the strong alliance of the Chinese and American military in their heroic fight against the Japanese. Marco Polo, the famous Venetian adventurer, traveled to China on the Northern Silk Road, which spanned a vast distance from the Mediterranean Sea across the Middle East and Central Asia, traversing the roof of the world until it finally reached the Middle Kingdom. Dali was the gateway of the Southern Silk Road, also known as the Tea Road, which spanned Tibet, Central Asia, and India. For hundreds of years, this trade road system dominated the cultural, economic, and religious development of the region. During his 17 years in the service of Emperor Kublai Khan, Marco Polo also extensively traveled the Tea Road. Tea is the favorite beverage of the Chinese. According to historical data, China began growing tea about 4,500 years ago. Yunnan province was one of the first tea-producing regions in China and home of the highly valued pu'er tea. Pu'er tea can be consumed immediately after the harvest or aged for many years, similar to wine. Pu'er tea is available as loose leaves or as cakes of compacted tea called tea bricks. Other than speed and quantity, traditional methods of producing this tea are no different than those of the modern production lines. It was during the Tang Dynasty that horse caravans began hauling tea bricks from Yunnan to Tibet and India, along with fine silks, jade, spices, and salt. In earlier times, horses were traded for silk, But gradually, the nomads in the western region of China became dependent upon tea because it helped them to digest their mostly meat diet and provided them with much-needed vitamin C. And so they started to trade horses for tea. On the way to Lhasa in Tibet, they traversed high plateaus in extreme cold. Continuing to India, they crossed the snow-capped Himalayas. This round trip for a tea caravan took 6 months and covered a distance of about 4,000 kilometers. Even today, caravans roam as they have for centuries, but they are beginning to fade into the dusty hoofprints of history. In order to guarantee the peaceful trade along the tea and silk roads, the Tang dynasty established courier stations. These courier stations, also called caravanserais, were usually a day's ride apart and provided food and shelter for the exhausted travelers. Remnants of these historic caravanserais are spread all over Dali. Many years ago, Shaxi was also the junction of salt caravans, which hauled salt from 4 large mines in the area. A special tax was collected here from the salt traders. Salt was also used to dry and preserve pork, a nutritious and tasty source of energy. The Donglianhua fortified Muslim village near Weishan is another centuries-old caravanserai. 3 Muslim brothers, who each had over 100 horses, built Donglianhua. They would exchange their rested horses for a caravan's travel-worn beasts of burden. Descendants of the original families still live here and run a Quran school for the community. Not far away, the American family of Brian Linden has renovated the old estate of a once prosperous tea road merchant in the town of Chizu. He was kind enough to share his experience of Dali with us.
There's something that always resonated about China ever since I came here in '84. And we searched all over China to establish the center. We decided very early that Dali was going to be the destination for us. There is no place in China that combines the ethnic diversity, the weather, the scenery. Dali is special. You walk around the old city and you go in and you can have a pizza, and then the next place over you're having a shizhou baba. It's the best of both worlds. Our goal here is we establish this center to have a place where people could come and touch a living village, immerse themselves in this culture, and we'll probably never leave. So this is our view. This is where we're going to grow old.
For centuries, Dali's annual cattle and horse market has drawn people from afar to celebrate the history of the region. The markets are filled with natural foods and supplies, often brought in by, no surprise, horses. In the middle of the festival is the horse market, a center for buying and selling. Checking the teeth of a horse is a way to ensure good health. Since time immemorial, and even through the modern development of the region, the horse is still man's best friend, and still the center of sporting events. As Shakespeare said, love looks not with the eyes, but with the mind. In Dali, both are satisfied, for Dali is a vivid reminder that retaining tradition does not mean holding on to ashes, but rather keeping the cinders glowing. Tradition is the river of life, carving its way through history.